Well, hello. Fancy meeting you here. It's another day, another stream in fascist America. You the Wow, I cannot speak. It's Friday, but also, you know, the brain operation or lack thereof is indicative of needing a weekend. The United States of America being fascist America. Not to say that there aren't other fascist places in the Americas, but largely because of colonization, which is also happening in the United States of America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. I'm Aubri Devashrayee. Today is Culture Corner. Oh! No, it didn't go where I originally thought it would, so there you go. It's Culture Corner. I'm not doing a singing lesson today because I am wanting to be a little more thorough with my lesson planning. I did not get to the lesson planning that I wanted to do last night or today, so I'll get into that next week. But I did want to get into more of these various types of art that I'm excited about, getting in some cultural history that I think is important to be talking about, especially as we are nearing the end of Pride Month, making sure that we are keeping this history alive. So we'll be going into that, and then we will be officially starting Othello. Oh, but before that, going into some of the history of Othello, like the actors who have played Othello, the problematic nature of many actors playing Othello, especially when they are in blackface, so calling that out. And even when there are black actors who are able to play Othello historically, that the whole storytelling, if there is not directors who are listening to uh, an actor's perspective, how problematic it can be, that it is not just providing people opportunities, but actually listening to people, and that there is always room for more decolonization for any sort of art. So we'll get into that. And then we will read Act 1, Scene 1 of Othello. After reading Act 1, Scene 1, I did want to show a little excerpt from the Royal Shakespeare Company, and it is of Act 1, Scene 1, just to get a little taste of what it looks like when it is acted, not just hearing it from the likes of me, because it is only getting part of the story, part of the art. When you are just reading Shakespeare, it is meant to be on stage, it is meant to be embodied with actors and to hear these words spoken aloud, again, not just by me, but by people who are in character. Not to say that I don't like attempt characters in my readings, but it hits different when you have people in costume, when you have all of the blocking involved and lighting, and yeah. So we'll get into that. But to start off, I did want to watch this video by The Onion. So, hello, Turdbon. Were we able to ban all the Discord bots? I believe so. Luckily, yeah, there were a lot of people who were able to assist with it. Yeah, it was a wild time. It's very embarrassing to be fascist, but again, these things are not surprising. How are you doing? Okay, So this video by The Onion is called, "Should the government stop dumping money into a giant hole?" I know. Yeah, it's wild. I'm not going to be talking about it a lot just to not give people the satisfaction of attention. But yes, it's not surprising. This is what happens when you are outspoken about cops and their bullshit. One of the reasons why I was pushed out of my job. Trying to get the house clean. Nice. Yeah, no, thank you for checking. I appreciate it. Okay, so I think this is a re-upload from The Onion. I feel like I've seen this before. We'll see. 9 days ago. Usually the comments say if it's a re-upload, so it does look familiar. If they haven't done this before, it's something that's been similar. Okay. Let's give this a watch.
The U.S. is heading for a prolonged recession. Some experts are suggesting that the government should stop dumping all of our money into an enormous hole. Is it time to close the national money hole?
That kind of talk is alarmist and irresponsible.
America needs the money hole.
Right. Driving truckloads of money out into the New Mexico desert and dumping it into a massive pit is one of America's greatest traditions.
It's a national treasure.
Now, look, no reasonable person is advocating that we are going to stop destroying money. But the American people earn that money. They have the right to decide how it should be destroyed.
Well, so you are in favor of personal money holes?
Yes, people should be able to dump money into a hole in their backyard or flush it down the toilet. Let the free market decide the most
Personal
efficient way
money
of
holes.
destroying
My father worked 2 jobs so he'd have money to put in the money hole, and he never complained.
The U.S. is heading for a prolonged recession.
Even if it isn't a re-upload, the costuming, like the styling that they did for people, it looks like it's set in a different time, which is great. Okay, so we're going to immediately get into Culture Corner. Here is this video that I saw. I have not heard of this podcast, Queering Daisy, but as a Daisy person, I was very excited to hear about this. It's being highlighted by Brown Girl Magazine. I follow this account on my personal accounts. I'll subscribe here. And I wanted to show this overview, and we'll be checking out the podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Queering Daisy, a Brown Girl Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Priya. As a South Asian, queer, cisgendered woman, I have learned a lot on my journey of self-acceptance and building community. So each week, I will bring you a slice of South Asian LGBTQ life with a guest who exemplifies what it means to be who you are and to live your truth.
So they're
Queering Daisy came up.
It sounds like they were playing part of the podcast in person for this interview.
I want to say at least a year and a half ago, at least as a brainchild and brain thought. It just came together as, why don't I start a podcast and give literal voice to some of the people that I've met along my journey that have made it so much easier for me.
Growing up in California was not always easy for Priya Arora. She knew that there was something different about her, but didn't quite realize what it was.
I didn't think you could be South Asian LGBTQ. I Googled gay Daisy, and I found a website called Gacy Family, based in India. And I started writing for them under a pseudonym because I wasn't out with my family yet. And I snuck out one night to go to a mudra night.
Mudra. A form of dance originated by courtesans during the Mughal era. I guess I could have given this a little introduction. We're celebrating Pride Month in full swing, so this came out a while ago, obviously. Queens, and of course, there's no better way than sharing our very own podcast, Queering Daisy's host the Priya Arora's story, captured so eloquently on a short documentary.
And There were these people in drag. The community in that house that night moved me to realize that you could be brown and queer and all these things and have a life.
Since moving to New York, Priya has been a strong advocate of fostering supportive community. She ran an identity team dealing with gender and sexuality at Brown Girl magazine and is now a front-page editor at Huffington Post.
Oh my god, I can't.
A big part of Priya's support system is her fiancé Rima Tarani.
Front.
Like this?
Yeah.
No?
No?
It's always like that, on the side.
Do you change your head like that?
Sometimes when I want to show off.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, let me tell you something, okay? You know how they say behind every successful man there's a woman? Behind every successful woman there's another woman. So
Well,
I am that woman, okay?
Rima was Priya's first guest on the show.
Yes.
Well, so what's your goals for the coming episodes?
The coming episodes, I mean, my goal so far, and I think they've done so well thus far, is trying to be really eclectic in my mix of identities, right? So having you, my partner, talk about bisexuality or your faith or all those things, having a parent on, having an Indo-Korean.
I love how on the family photo it showed chosen family as well, that this is such a huge aspect of queer identity, largely when it comes to the marginalization that can happen to queer people, and how chosen family has been a necessity for many people. Like, I have experienced this as well, of choosing the people that you feel like love you for who you are, not that it has to be earned or you have to conform to people's expectations. It's not only a way to take power back, but also to engage in self-love and empower other people around you, where you can create relationships and a supportive system that you have wanted all along, that it can be a very beautiful reclaiming.
Men on, there is a little burden of how do I make sure everyone's voices are heard, and obviously that's impossible, right? Everyone's voices can't be heard, but sometimes I think it's enough for the people who can't even express or can't come out of the shadows and express their solidarity with this podcast to be able to know that that attempt is being made or that their stories matter. And so on Twitter and on Facebook, I've often kind of posted for the people that aren't reaching out, for the people that feel invisible and feel unheard, this is for them.
Priya wants queer desis to feel less alone. A recent episode of her podcast featured Aruna Rao, mother to a queer daughter and founder of Desi Rainbow Parents and Allies.
It was very lonely for me, when my daughter came out to me. And even though I thought of myself as someone who was well-equipped to handle, my child coming out, it was still very, very isolating. And so when I started looking around for support, and I realized all the support that was available was really not for people of my ethnicity or race, or, frankly, there was almost nothing for brown people. And when I did go to PFLAG spaces, which were very welcoming and supportive, I still found that, again, I felt like I was the token immigrant.
Priya believed,
of being tokenized in these spaces, that within queer spaces, there can be racism, there can be tokenization. This is very real. There can be transphobia. There can be all kinds of forms of discrimination, of invisibilizing non-binary people. It's like, this is very real, especially when it comes to white liberal spaces, that they may have rainbows everywhere, but it may also not be an environment where all people feel included. And so, or it's accessible for people with disabilities as well. So, all of these things are factors when it comes to people having safe spaces to be in. And it is a difficult concept to deal with, that that every queer space needs to engage with, that there are many people that feel like these kinds of spaces do not meet all of their needs. and that often it forces people to create spaces of their own. And so in some ways, like, that means that there is more like robust organizing that's coming from a very grassroots level of people having to create these spaces themselves. But it also goes to show how, like, everyday people are constantly feeling the need to fill in the gaps when it comes to these places that should be safe spaces. And even if they try to have like racist, anti-racist mantras or mission statements, it's what is being done in practice that is very important. And so a lot of the time it does force people to have to engage in this kind of organizing themselves. So it's that double-edged sword of like, okay, so it's good to have some spaces, but also like people go into these spaces and then experience a lot of the same kinds of discrimination or tokenization that they experience just in the world at large, and that it still falls on people as a burden to create these spaces themselves.
There is much to discuss about the queer South Asian identity, and plans to bring her podcast back for another season in the fall. As she plans her wedding, with her parents supporting her lifestyle, Priya looks back at her journey.
Having
Coming
date
out
night
has
on the
been
calendar.
something that is not just one thing or one day. It's every day with my family, talking about my partner, talking about my work, talking about my podcast, and them learning the language, learning how to open their community, their hearts to it as well. How do I navigate the world as a queer woman of color, dressing masculine of center? I get misgendered sometimes. I get looked at a lot of times. So those are the things that compass my journey. And more than anything, I would say looking back on the journey has been just being able to find self-acceptance and self-love, to be able to embrace all aspects of imperfection and being able to label ourselves. So if I do identify as a queer woman of color, that's not the only thing that defines me, nor do I contain myself within those labels either.
Yeah, very cool. I don't know if this podcast is still going, which I need to do that research and see. But it is very cool that she was able to do that. It's very needed. And the fact that, you know, she's talking about, especially that last part of feeling like there's this continual education that must be done, like if you want to maintain relationships with family members, and also making sure that like there is a space for people. I was going to say something else and then I got distracted, or I lost my train of thought. Okay. So this is a song by Dog Park Dissidents called Starship Feminist BDSM Paradise that is great, that I wanted to play. I also am going to go grab a drink real quick, so I'll be right back. But I want to play this.
Taking Odyssey through time and space to a place where the girls wear blue and the boys wear leashes. At least when there is a difference. Remember the chick called that, so she's on the south and she's wearing a strap on her slap and your ass with a lion's belt. Oh, while you're hanging from the ceiling. One of the boyfriends introduced you to her. Now he's one of your boyfriends, cause you want to impress her. Yeah, this is how the world ends. You getting paid by letting up chess man on the view screen.
your cis male tears. I'm going to say, like, the vocals themselves are not necessarily my favorite out of the various songs of this band, Dog Park Dissidents. I do really enjoy the message of this, and I think we need to be hearing it. It's just unapologetically pro-queer, and especially with the name of it, of talking about how, like, yeah, these are what queer relationships look like, and how it's saying, like, a double X, meaning like double X chromosomes as a man, of like people being caught up in, like, what does it actually mean to be a man and a woman? Are we talking about chromosomes? Are we talking about hormones? Are we talking about, like, anatomy? And it all is so slippery, and, like, the world is extremely queer. Nature is very queer. Humans are very queer. It is natural, and it is embracing this fact.
BDSM Paradise.
Especially taking back or reclaiming Star Wars, it is largely thought of to be a very cishet male cultural phenomenon, and to actually, it does lend itself very much to queerness, but it's reclaiming a lot of that, and I love that. Okay, so something that you brought up, Turd Bomb, is the Philharmonic had this Tiny Desk concert that I wanted to show that came out pretty recently on May 29th. Winner of the 2024 Tiny Desk contest. So I'm excited to see this. This may have, like, a copyright thing. NPR can be pretty strict about that. So if it happens to, like, go quiet or something, or it's like muting it for some reason, feel free to let me know.
Anything that I wanted to be. Well, God said you can't make money and fulfill your dreams. But if you look at the people that are better than me, trying to find a way around this power scheme. What's it all mean? 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 Get up, go to work.
Those vocals are so good. His, and also the backup.
What's it all mean? 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 Should I drink or do drugs since I only live once, or ask God for some help so I don't? I win the race. Got my eyes on the prizes, take it day by day. Even though on the journey we might fall on the way. Now if you fall 7 times, make sure you get back up, babe. What's it all mean? What's it all mean? That's what it all means. What's it all mean? What's it all mean? That's what it all means. Well, those up money come down. Those about comes around. Bound with something to fall. Life itself still a fall. Lots of things we don't know. Always more room to grow.
I like that change up. Okay, so he began his start. Had to start in Cleveland, where he was born. Began taking classical piano lessons at the age of 6. After he attended a concert with his mom. That's cute. I'm reading this on his website.
On this song, Jeffrey, I got to have you take a 15. I know it's the beginning of your shift, but
I'm pretending that he's the manager.
this song is for all of those who have thought about doing alternative things because their paycheck was not enough. Approaching the first of the month, I don't think I have enough to even afford my rent. I'm losing my will to live. Once I hit age 26, I'm off of my mom's coverage. When she said get a real job, I probably should have listened. Finances taking a hit. I should go back to college. Rack up 6 figures in debt for a job I might not even get. What's even the point of degrees if I'ma end up on the street or working for Mickey D's? That's that bullshit I don't need. Now, the other option on my mind is not one that I usually try. But for the first time in my life, I think I might sell drugs. Never mattered, but I'm really needing that fast food. I better hope the money stacks up, or my landlord will tell me to pack up. It's true that nobody gives a fuck unless it results in a surplus. That make you want to sell pull up, don't make it grow up without growing up. And the job not to seem to fail, I some kill in black market retail. At least then the bread would never stay. Son on the people that never came, never grow up on our platters, but instead I became a rapper in my 20s so I could just have fun. But now I only be lacking funds. Now regret is on my mind.
The American struggle.
But for the first time in my life, I think I might sell drugs. You guys got it.
Apparently his first piano teacher played for the Cleveland Orchestra. That's very cool.
For the first time in my life, for the 30th time in my life, I think I might sell drugs. honest truth about adulthood is that it's full of empty promises. I guess if you look at the positives, you'll figure out everyone's winging it. My high school reunion is coming up. I'm mad I don't even have time to stun on the people that didn't believe in me. That day is coming, I swear you see.
His parents must have been doing pretty well for him to have lessons like that. I mean, it may depend.
When you're really broke, that's the reason I don't feel it nice. People committing violent crimes so they can afford the living life. Sleep on the roofs on sunny nights. Who are you to
Or maybe he was like good enough as well to be noticed in that way.
Who are you to judge? Who are you to judge?
But also in like relation to this song of like it doesn't always insulate you from the experience of feeling like it's very difficult to make ends meet as an adult, you know, especially for young people these days. Wow. I love that little detail, the guitar at the end. A very talented band as well.
Hi, I'm the Philharmonic. My real
Hello,
name is Christian
Tan.
Gates.
Welcome.
Been doing this for a long time, but I know that in order to reach the
I
next
finished
level,
your
you gotta have a
bracelet
team with you. Everything is
today.
a group effort. This office is a
Hello,
group
welcome.
effort, and this is just another day at the
Namaste.
office. But I want to introduce y'all to my personnel, my friends, and my musicians.
I also finished
So,
my
we're gonna
note
start
to you. I don't know if it would be
my
easier
left
to
to
do
your right,
something
all the
in
way
like Signal
My right to your
or
left.
getting it to you. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Well, on the background vocalists, we got Alicia Hall and Mariah Wenzel, my heart
New
and soul.
emotes.
And on rhythm guitar, on my far left, we got
You're
Tyler
okay.
Chavez. But not only does he do guitar, he does a little bit of
Go
background that you saw
vegan.
earlier. Behind me, you got legend Darius Upshaw. On the guitar.
Got my Mac charged. Oh,
And behind
thank
him, we
you.
got Jimmy Tor on the flutes.
Yeah, I'm also a little more prepared
Samuel
today.
Phelps on the bass.
I'm like, maybe I should have like locked down things more before
Miller on the drums.
talking more about certain topics.
Partner in crime on the keys, Jeffrey Archie Jr. And this song is called
But so is the sword. Hello.
Chasing.
I also finished your note that I wrote to you. So in getting it to you, I don't know what you would prefer, like what the way to go about sharing that information, what you're most comfortable with. I don't know if you have Signal. Okay. That sounds good. Yeah, whatever you are comfortable with. And there's no rush on that.
Yet I'll chase temporary satisfaction. Then I wonder why I always feel I'm lacking. Despite
This is the artist the Philharmonic, not just Philharmonic.
throughout life, and its obstacles will fade.
Very talented. Won the 2024 Tiny Desk competition.
Some will stay. The only way is to endure all joy and pain. Though at times it may seem in vain.
You can feel the,
Chasing after the wind.
I mean, many inspirations here, but a lot of Stevie Wonder.
Chasing things that never play no change. Chasing what's the
Very
point when
vibey.
there's no use in waiting. Waiting on what won't change. Over time, when life's magic
Friend who would
seems
love to attend this.
hand the light, doesn't shine like a
Attend a Tiny Desk concert. Attend Culture Corner.
covered by all the clouds and rain. Remember, there'll be better
Yes, former Tiny Desk. No, I would love to go to one of these. Friday. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah, Commodores. Yeah, some Prince in there. Michael. Has it been muted at all on your all's end? Is that a new emote? Okay. Groovin'. Amazing. Yeah. I feel like they've been, in some ways, like, Twitch has, like, loosened up with some music things, unless it's stuff that's coming from, like, these more, like, formal media outlets, like NPR. That's good to know. Thank you. I bet that it'll be muted on the Twitch. Yeah, you're probably right. And uploading it to YouTube, it will probably be muted, or there's a copyright. NPR, any of the, like, even like the, like, or not even, especially like SNL or like the, like, late night host shows. Those are usually copywritten. Can't wait for your beard to grow back. Thank you. I do have some stubble. The not drawn on beard that I'm currently growing out. I have some hairs that I'm trimming that I'm very proud of.
Show emotion and we think they're gonna think of us less. But you bless, you should never ever think that you less. Cause in the end, we always our biggest enemies. But it's always against each other that we compete. 9 times out of 10 is how it tends to be. Though this observation can be really hard to see. But if there's one thing that I hope you never fail to notice, is that our music's still beautiful though the record's broken. If all we want in life is unconditional love, then what we want is what we have to become, and that's love. If I told you I'll see color shoes, that's about the light that's inside of you. Maybe then I hope you recognize the truth be the opposite from the side. Don't you know I get to look at God every time I look at you.
Okay, so that previous song, not the one before, but the one before that, Drugs. In 2019, the Philharmonic toured the US and Canada for the release of that song. And then his third album, Ironic, came out in 2022. He's extremely versatile. Crack is my favorite. Love. Your first gray hair? Was it on your head? Or you're just like in like facial hair? I guess that's a personal question. You don't have to answer. Yes. I love the meaning behind his music. On your beard, right around the chin. You're distinguished. You're not like you weren't before, but your hair follicles are making it official. Well, not only is the music just the music is tight with how it's written. So groovy. I feel like there are so many, like one of the, not to interrupt the grooving, sorry. If something can sound like familiar while also being like new, that is the key. That is like the magic. Just like synthesizing things in a different way. The song Pay Me. Outside of music, he enjoys, because his name is Christian Gates. Wait, where did I just lost my spot. Christian enjoys golf, bowling, introspection, wow, and spending quality time with family and friends. That's sweet. All the emote. You know, dopamine to the brain. Queer applause. Excellent.
Thank y'all.
Whoop.
Upper management just hit me up and said there will be no raises for this quarter. So
There will be no raises.
pizza party in the back room.
Everybody, file out. The meeting adjourned.
The meenagers? Is that what she just said? I love the bit of him coming in late, like he's like, "Oh, I'm late for my set." Meeting adjourned. Very talented. That win was very deserved. Okay, I wanted to play this song by Big Frida, a queer icon who has been around for a long time with bounce music in New Orleans and house music with in queer nightlife. Big Frida has been sampled a lot, worked with a lot of big artists, and still to this day, I think is not given as much credit and notoriety as what she deserves. So I wanted to play one of her newest things that came out for Pride Month. She has 3 songs that came out, and this song, Let Me See Ya, features Sophie and Muna. I didn't know it featured Muna. I don't think they're like credited on like the title of the song at least, but Sophie is. Sophie is a trans artist who passed away sadly a couple of years ago, who is extremely talented and pioneered a lot of the hyper pop sound that we know of today, like the very like industrial sounding that like she would create beats from scratch and just layer them. So it wasn't like any sort of instrument. It was just with her Mac and layering music that way, which is really wild. Just like a very modern way to be creating music. So a lot of the sounds that we hear today, like especially with all the hyper pop girlies, they can give a lot of credit to Sophie. The manager coming late and getting mad at employees for coming late. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I love that bit because it also is like reflected in his music. And so it's this larger statement. It seems like it's a very simple thing, but it's like, this is what we're all experiencing and it's shitty. And it gets to be very intolerable. And you know what makes it a little more tolerable is when we can put it to a groovy sound that is digestible. So I love that. Okay, so this is, let me see. Actually, does this have a description? The third and final single from Released at Last, an EP created from a 2016 recording session with Big Frida and Sophie. Yeah, so Sophie was so fucking prolific, created so much music that, like, even though she has passed, there still is a ton of music that people have in archives that they have done with her that just hasn't been released. She would produce music. She was an artist herself. What is her most famous album, at least like in pop culture, like other side, Pearl Tears, something? Last Pearl's Tears. This is Sophie. Icon. Oil of Every Pearl's Uninsides. Okay, I was way off with Tears, but I think there might be a song on here. Oh, It's Okay to Cry. That's what I was thinking. It is on that album. So just mixing up all of these things. This Product album that she has is very experimental. At the time, it got hardly any notice from people who were like part of the mainstream. It was really just noticed by people in the industry, and they were like, whoa, this is very new. So that's a little bit about Sophie. She lives on with all of this music. The Brat album that Charli XCX came out with in 2024 was very inspired by a lot of Sophie's music. Charli XCX has said that like she feels like she was able to find more of her sound when she was able to collaborate with Sophie. I think one of the very first things they worked on was Vroom Vroom. That was what kind of launched Charli into like underground stardom and recognition, because she had her first album, True Romance, that's really good and I think is still very good. And then there was the Sucker album that had like Boom Clap. That was her attempt at, you know, like getting into the mainstream, and she did, but she didn't like it and felt like it wasn't true to her identity. And then when she collaborated with Sophie, it was kind of a return to her original sound, but like having it be even more hyper pop focused, which at the time that wasn't even really a term. It was just like, oh, we're doing something new. Sitting back and enjoying the content. Lurk for a few. Yeah, do what you need to do. Okay. Big Frida, I did want to give a little bit of a background for Big Frida. American rapper, singer, and performer, known for her work in the bouncing hip-hop bounce music in New Orleans. Frida has been credited with helping popularize the genre, which had largely been underground, and was developing in the early 1990s. So I think the most amount of people started like being familiar with Big Frida's music or sound when Beyonce wanted to collaborate with her. So in the song Formation, like, come on ladies, now let's get in formation. And then Break My Soul off of the Renaissance album, that was also, I think, Renaissance is just an ode to Black queer artists who have been in house music and nightlife, and you couldn't create an album like that without including Big Frida on it. So Muna, they're also talented. Some of their music is better than others. That's my opinion. It can be not as like, I like a good beat for things, and yeah, I know there are many like Muna fans that would be very upset with me saying that, but you know what? It's okay. They're talented. Not all of their music is for me. Okay. So also that beat, the that it's just playing, that also is very much ballroom, of like having someone do voguing when they are walking for a ball, or voguing is a type of category that people compete in. That voguing, it was invented by queer Black people in Harlem in New York City in the 1980s, and that a lot of music, a lot of slang, a lot of culture in America specifically that young people are using now, especially like that they think comes from TikTok, but actually came from ballroom culture. So like how I say something is fierce, that comes from ballroom. Yeah, like saying slay, or like they ate, or like when people are doing this comes from ballroom. Yeah, or like the category is, that comes from ballroom. Or saying like they understood the assignment, that comes from ballroom. It's like actually understanding what the category is. So like many things that are in queer culture today come from ballroom culture specifically. So we need to give credit where credit is due. But that more like metallic sound. Yes. Sending the link. It's like some bounce music on top of it. But the like metallic sound, especially with clashing, that's very Sophie branded. Which in ballroom, when people are voguing, especially voguing femme, whether people are assigned female at birth or no, a lot of the time they wear wings that are very cute.
Tell me what you going out in. I love a girl in a weird profit. I could see it, so the students start dancing. Let me see your phone, cause I wanna put my number in. You're a star, shine like Sophie. 1, 2, 3, let me see.
Yeah, shine like Sophie. Muna, they're queer as well. This is a treat for Pride. Some people would say this is the mothership. Even saying someone is mother, that comes from ballroom.
So sweet, so chic, nice girl, mean streak. I know you got it.
You got to kill that shit. Let me see ya dance to the beat. Let me see ya move your feet. Let me see ya bounce to the beat. Let me see ya bouncing that ass. Let me see ya jump to the beat. Let me see ya jumping all around. Let me see ya move to the beat. Let me see ya moving all around. Let me see ya dance to the beat. Let me see ya move your feet. Let me see ya bounce to the beat. Let me see ya bouncing that ass. Let me see ya jump to the beat. Let me see ya jumping all around. Let me see ya move to the beat. Let me see ya moving all around. Jump with it, jump with it. Dance with it, dance with it, dance with it. Clap with it, clap with it, clap with it. Move with it, move with it, move with it. Now dance, move, shake, work. Dance, move, shake, work. Dance, move, shake, work. You got to kill that shit.
Uh-huh. Well, yes. Okay. So good. So much talent in one song. Hello, Aliana. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Things are much calmer today, to everyone's relief. Okay. So let's get into this conversation of the various actors who have played Othello. This is from a podcast called A Bit Lit, and it is about literature. So, play on words. And this is featuring Miles Grier, who is a book and theater historian. I'm guessing like literature and theater historian. And I'm just going over the introduction. Tells us about the place of Shakespeare's Othello in a long moment of shared vernacular literacy as a colonizing tool. Yes. Grier insists that this is a play that implicitly summons an audience of white experts, and connects us both to the use of blackface paint for most of the play's long history on stage, and to the history of black actors taking on the central role. Why does this indestructible play live on, Grier asks, as a vector of authority? So this is our transition. We're transing, because same. Into Othello, continuing with talking about culture, the history of Othello, and actors that have played Othello. So,
Miles, hello, how are you?
Hi, Andy. I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you.
Actually, I might need to refresh this because this is what happens. Whoa, 22.
Then see if you still like it.
Miles, hello, how are you?
Hi, Andy. I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I should warn our viewers that before I pressed record for this film, you made me laugh so much that I temporarily lost my voice. So I'm very excited and nervous for this film, in which who knows what might happen. And I'm delighted that Sarah Vaughan is the presiding deity over our conversation.
Yes, you've raised expectations too high. Now people that aren't laughing from the word go or who aren't serenaded by Sarah Vaughan will automatically, tune out. So
okay, well, I'll lower expectations. I have a weird sense of humor, so I'm not saying anything about how hilarious it was for anyone else. Just
I have a weird sense of humor. I'm just now like insulting him.
I'm not funny. I'm never.
May I ask you, when you finished having your drink, whether you could introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your work, please?
Sure. Yes. So I'm Miles Grier. I am an assistant professor at Queens College, CUNY in New York, the epicenter of the epicenter in terms of COVID. So it's been quite a past few months here.
This was when
I
COVID
joke a little
happened. I
bit
didn't
that,
realize.
scholars talk about the
5
long
years
18th
ago.
century going from the Restoration in the 1660s to 1820, and we are currently living in the long 2020. It is clearly not over. But
The long
I
2020.
teach in the English department, and I sometimes say that I do various renaissances, the English Renaissance, the American Renaissance, and the Harlem Renaissance. That's not the entirety of what I do, but it's a good shorthand for some of the concerns and questions that brought me to my intellectual work. So I'm currently finishing a book which is tentatively titled Ink Face. Atlantic and or no, that is no longer the subtitle. The formation of white interpretive Othello and the formation of white interpretive community, 1604
throwback.
to 1855.
Different times, I know.
So that gets at least the English Renaissance
Ugh.
and the American Renaissance in.
That time really
and what I'm
just
looking at is a sort
escalated all of the politics we're
forgotten
experiencing now
history
too.
of Othello, a history that is actually determined less.
I think this is my quick insertion about 2020. I think it also, and like not to interrupt.
By what scholars have usually looked at with.
Okay. I wanted to have him finish that clause at least and end on a better frame. Sorry, Miles. I think it also like exacerbated the loneliness epidemic, so-called loneliness epidemic, because what is being experienced with all of that is primarily like patriarchal forces that were already pushing back against what many people are calling like woke one, of like saying like, oh, well, we can't talk about certain things, you're saying everything's my fault. And it's like, no, we're talking about systems. This is why we need to keep learning about what these even mean. That would be helpful. But I think it did not help, certainly, that the manosphere was already building and that people were hyper online and extra lonely, that there were not as many like in-person interactions. This is for everyone's safety, of course, which was necessary in order to make it so that we didn't have even more deaths happening because of COVID. But people not being able, especially young people, not being able to feel like they could have as much like sexual exploration just with themselves or other people, with families being around all the time, and that it just kind of led to this heightened situation of things that were already at play, and that the politics that were already in the works of what we see now, it just got completely heightened. Anyway.
High points, for example, in the transshipment of Africans across the Atlantic. And they've sort of looked at those kinds of moments as determining how Othello was staged and what it could mean. And my sense is that theater has its own conventions that allow for characters to be recognizable across time. And in the case of Othello, the theatrical convention across 1604 to 1855 that's actually relatively stable is the use of blackface. And once we start paying attention to that makeup, we start to see that the questions that we've usually asked, well, what does Moor mean? Does it mean North African? Does it mean Sub-Saharan African? How many Black people lived in Shakespeare's London? That those questions pale in comparison, forgive me, to pale in comparison to the question of how makeup acts on stage. And this particular Black makeup transfers from Othello to Desdemona. And so you get his final couplet, which people have not paid close enough attention to as a sort of document of actual stage a staged event. He says, I kissed thee ere I killed thee, no way but this, killing myself to die upon a kiss. And I always thought it was die, bite the big one. But in fact, it is die, as in stain. He stains Desdemona with his kiss. And once we start to think about that pun, I mean, of course, he does both, right? But once we start to think about that pun, a lot of different moments in the play read very differently. And we also start to see that in terms of the history of race, Richard Burbage, Edmund Kean, well, he played it in brownface, but these Othellos who were white men who were painted can dye Desdemona with their kiss. And Robeson, James Earl Jones, Lawrence Fishburne cannot. And so the Black person who is involved in Shakespeare's Othello has no relation to the Black person that I am, right? Because this particular Moor has this function of dying with his kiss and sort of leaving this telltale stain on Desdemona that marks her as a dishonest woman. I mean, it's not true. She isn't a dishonest woman, right? And the same mark that makes her appear to be unfaithful. We talk about a black mark against her character. The same black mark against her character is actually really just, Othello's monograph, or I'm sorry, monogram, that he has, kind of put his signature on her. But because black is sort of overdetermined as this mark of sinfulness, adultery, dishonesty, slavery, even, Desdemona dies doubly. So that's part one of this. And the last piece that I'll say right now is that the other kind of weird thing about that emerges when we start to pay attention to things like makeup is that Othello compares Desdemona to paper. And so his blackness is also the blackness of ink. He says, was this fair paper, this most goodly book, made to write whore upon? And so this also becomes a play about literacy. And for my money, the racial work and the gendered work that the play does has to do with creating a class of people who are understood as reading material. They've been marked with the same blackness that is the blackness of ink. And therefore, they are not part of this elite literate white fraternity that the Venetian senators are a part of, which is why that long, tedious bit about the movements of the Turk at the, Act 1, I think that's Act 1, Scene 5. It's all paperwork, right? It's all bureaucratic. Messages are coming in, some are oral, some are written, and the senators of Venice have to read between the lines, as it were. And Othello and Desdemona, both of whom are blackened over the course of the play, wind up being the bad readers. And so what you get implicitly, and that's what the book is really about, what you get implicitly is this fraternity of literate white men. And this is at the same moment, a long moment, 1604 to 1855, where literacy is becoming a shared property, a kind of state project, right? That it's no longer just going to be priests that are literate.
The
but
printing
this idea
press.
that vernacular literacy is going to be something the state is interested in promoting. We tend to think of that as just like functional, right? We're going to teach the alphabet, but it's like, no, it has these religious connotations because we're teaching, literacy through the Bible. And so that means if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, right, and you're not, and the Bible is not your text, or for that matter, if you're Native American, if the Bible is not your text, then you're automatically being excluded from this seemingly neutral technology of literacy. So it has this weird implicit kind of racial politics of creating a group of people who are thought of as masterful readers and sort of able to commune with God and able to interpret the world, and those people who are thought of as not only, as I said, reading material, but also as sort of bad readers and producers of nonsense. So that, in a nutshell, is the project. You know, it ends with Mike Brown and Christine Blasey Ford here in the U.S. Because I want to show that this kind of fraternity of white male experts with a kind of unimpeachable credibility has persisted, you know, to this day, and that suspect women and suspect Negroes still have difficulty being heard and being thought of as credible, and that this indestructible play, Othello, is sort of is a vector through which we can trace how that sort of interpretive authority got created and maintained.
I think, yeah, something this is why it's so important to actually be hearing from people who can provide more context with the racializing that happens in this play, and how the racializing through interpretations of the play has persisted, and how it has been done through the lens of these larger political structures. It also, I think, is a way to highlight how the written word has always been classist in nature, and that people who have not had the chance to learn to read, this is often dictated by, you know, the powers that be, and how there is funding with programming and education for people, but also it goes back to colonial times of the written word being used to impose culture and dominance and justify this power imbalance, to genocide people and extract resources, steal land, and it is to erase oral cultures and oral traditions as well. And to say, like, well, if you can't read, if you are what he is saying, a quote unquote bad reader, then that means that you aren't as smart or as intelligent, and that you don't have as much value in a society that is inherently colonial. And I mean, if we're saying colonial, it just is also inherently classist as well. Just so that we can get to the reading, I think I may speed this up a bit.
Wow, thank you. That was a lot, so I need to stop and unpack some of that. It's fantastic. Thank you very much, Miles. I mean, one of the kind of through lines through a lot of the different things you said there is about how time and moments can have unexpectedly long durations. You talked about a long moment at one point, and we are, as you say, in long 2020, and we'll probably be here for many decades to come. Sorry, everybody.
Please. Let it not be so.
So if I can just work through a few of those things. I mean, I'm fascinated by what you say about that very long scene at the start of Othello, and I have no idea when Act 1 it occurs, but it occurs at the end of Act 1, right? And Act 1 up to that point has been characterized by really quite short scenes in which men are chasing after something, whether that's Iago and Rodrigo looking for Brabantio's house, or Brabantio then looking for Desdemona, and then there's great chaos on the streets as people are looking for Othello. Suddenly you go from that world in which, you know, successive iterations of dudes on streets trying to get somewhere else to find something, hunting basically. We suddenly get into the scene of, as you put it, a fraternity of literate white men, and they are the epicenter to which documents and news are brought. So there's a kind of dramaturgical and rhythmical underpinning to some of the things that you're saying there that I think's really fascinating. And then you very modestly kind of confined your account of your work to Othello, but I know from other examples of your work that Titus Andronicus is very important as well, and a more general history of ink facing, if I may borrow your term.
Please,
and it's kind of
tell your friends.
of thinking about racialized identity as a form of bookish ink on black ink on white paper, and vice versa, kind of reading bodies via text and reading text via bodies. So I'd definitely like to think a bit more about that, if I may. You very brilliantly described Titus Andronicus as a hidden transcript of non-experts early modern racial thought, and I'd really like to return to that phrase at some point and unpack that with you. And then finally,
another very racialized play in Shakespeare.
Yeah, I love this idea of a kind of long moment of shared vernacular literacy, where that literacy is kind of being wielded as a colonizing tool. Who gets to have literacy, who doesn't, and what gets to count as vernacular and what doesn't. That all feels really important. I feel like I've matched your big picture with another version of the big picture rather than giving us helpful detail. Maybe we should start with Othello as you described it, as the indestructible play.
It's amazing. I mean, Thomas Rhymer tried to kill it. It was 1693, and he said this thing is crap. It's what? Oh, of course, I'm losing the phrase right now, but something something about an implausible farce. Yeah. Much Ado About a Handkerchief and all this kind of thing. Yeah. People have known the score on Othello for 400 years now.
Maybe we're in the long 1693 and we just haven't quite got there yet.
Well, I mean, it makes me wonder what is appealing about this utterly impossible play. It would seem. I'm sorry, what was that?
Tell us more.
Well, it would seem that we would have dropped it by now. So that makes me wonder, why is it that the implausibility? Let's talk about just one of the forms. I mean, Rhymer has his sort of litany of implausible things, but let's start with Othello isn't a person. There's nothing plausible. There's no sort of archival grounding. Where people have tried to say, and of course I'm going to get his name wrong, but the Moroccan ambassador who visits Queen Elizabeth, that's the basis for Othello. Well, no, because the Moroccan ambassador goes home. He doesn't say, before I leave, I just have to show you, Elizabeth, that I've always been true to you and I've always been a servant of the state. None of this honorable suicide that, if you are truly an aristocrat in your own country, as Othello says he is, then being fired by the Venetian Senate, what do you care? If you truly are a nobleman and a husband in a patriarchal society, you say, I'm taking my woman and I'm going back to Mauritania. Like you just use your patriarchal privilege. So why does that never cross Othello's mind? Why is it only Iago who makes that up as a lie?
I love him pointing that out.
To keep strong along. Why does Othello never think that?
So are you saying in a way that he doesn't think like a migrant, or as someone who has ties elsewhere, or
he doesn't think like an aristocrat. Right. He doesn't think like a man, in the patriarchal sense of it. And I certainly understand, that feminist critics would say, well, he thinks like a man enough to kill his wife. He thinks he has ownership of her. That's certainly true. That's indisputable. But the way to avoid that would be, I'm a man, fire me from the, I don't have to be general of your army. I go home. I mean, as a very plausible Negro myself, that's what I would do. I go home. I don't have to be here. I don't have to take this. And so the fact that he never considers that means that he can't be rooted in any kind of social structure. So he says these things, right? Like I fetch my life and blood from men of noble being, or something like that. But a person who really had that kind of footing in a society could use it, and he doesn't.
Yeah, of like he represents something that's beyond that. Oh, bless you, sir. Bless you, Miles, for talking about this, because it also highlights that like he does not view Othello, the character, does not view his position in society as having staying power as well, and that it means that like he either is like buying into more of the, like he already is buying into these like very racist, discriminatory aspects of living in society that like Shakespeare is creating, but also that there is this element of him being otherworldly and representing something else.
And so I find myself thinking that Othello is more, as I said before, of a function than a person, and his function is to convey this stain to Desdemona. But he's not a plausible person. But then you get the sort of new version of Othello is rooted in something, which is, after Black actors sort of take over the role, it's, Shakespeare felt our pain. Shakespeare wrote a story about, this is what Robeson says, God bless him, But I think the mistake that Robeson made, if I may be so bold to say that he made one, is that it wasn't that that Shakespeare wrote a play that allowed him to expose, that was made for him to expose global apartheid. It's that the act of having a Black person play Othello and kiss a white woman on stage in 1930, I think 1943 is when it premieres on Broadway. It's that because of the expected theatrical conventions of the time, he was sort of able to bring global apartheid and U.S. Jim Crow into crisis. But
Yes, it also is revealing like how we were talking about in the intro, not to keep interrupting. I'll keep it played after this insertion. But how they're talking about, like, we were reading in the intro that it's not like Shakespeare is being some progressive person. He is writing Othello's character through his own lens. And it is not like how we were talking about the example of like women, of he's not like particularly progressive as like a feminist necessarily, but like because he is wanting to write a play that is engaging with various aspects that like he thinks may lead to like interesting narratives, it doesn't mean that he's necessarily seeing like the humanity in people, or like seeing what liberation is, or like the need for liberation. It is very much coming from a standpoint of having privilege and othering these characters. So, and it is revealed through how flattened they are with a lot of the portrayals of them.
Foresaw that, why would he? Like, I don't do the Shakespeare's Nostradamus, or the Shakespeare's bleeding heart liberal who just sympathized with all God's creatures, great and small. What reason would he have? So I sometimes say that Robeson hijacks Othello, and as I also said, God bless him for doing it. But for us to then think that Othello is socially, historically, or psychologically realistic, is preposterous. But as I said, that then makes me wonder, then why do we want to believe that? And I would say that the answer, I think, is that Othello is a play about character and whether or not it's readable. And we live in a society that demands that we be able to read other people's character. And so we need that to be true for our everyday lives. And so since this is the play that relies on that, well, I don't know about the most, let me not get in trouble, but relies on it in a fundamental way, then we can't quite let it go, because we're still, all these court cases about sexual assault and sexual harassment wind up hinging on the very thing that, on the very problem that Desdemona faces. How do I convince you I'm not a whore when I'm sort of already marked that way? So we still want to believe that there is a such thing as the woman that's a whore, and that we can determine who does and does not deserve protection by sort of getting to that invisible character that everyone has, and then we'll know, well, that woman is deserving of protection and that one isn't, because of her character. Well, what's Desdemona's plight but that? So it seems to me that that's part of why we can't let go of Othello. I would love to, and I even have a plan for when I might do it. I'd love to have a kind of original performance condition version of Othello, so that you don't have white women and black men, and now sometimes even black women, trying to redeem Othello and Desdemona by putting their own bodies and psychologies and histories and hearts on the line. But let it just be, this is some mindless dude who just stains everybody he touches. And then see if you still like Othello so much.
I would love to see that.
To just be that function.
It's a brilliant idea.
Sort of symbol of black pain. I think people might decide it's time to fold up shop and do a night. As I said to my high school students once, do Coriolanus. Do a play with some nice white people in it.
There are some pretty nasty white people in Coriolanus.
There certainly are. That was the trip. There had been complaint that I did too much stuff with black people, and I said, well, then we'll do Coriolanus. That's fine.
Wow. I dream of a world in which it would be possible to complain of doing too much black early modern history. That sounds great. Bring it on. I'm wondering if we're pushing here at that phrase I quoted earlier from you. You've written a fantastic essay for Claire Bourne's forthcoming book, Shakespeare Text, where you talk about, as I say, Titus Andronicus being a kind of hidden transcript of non-expert early modern racial thought. And I wonder if some of the things you're telling us about Othello's character are a transcript of Shakespeare's non-expertise. He's unable to imagine how someone in that position might feel or think.
I'd never thought of it that way, Andy, that Shakespeare is flaunting his ignorance. But that's certainly true. And it's so nice to be in a place where one could say that, excellent playwright, but get some things wrong, when I wrote that phrase, I was thinking of the tendency of scholars to look for written documents about other people, non-English people, by natural historians, who were the sort of predecessors of biologists, by travel writers, and to assume that what the literate were printing about these other people is the only source we have for what English people really thought of Group X. And I thought, well, we know that literacy was not universal at this point. And we know that what was printed served certain purposes. You know, it wasn't like, you know, you can just self-publish on Kindle. You know, like you had to have some kind of financial or state backing in order to get something printed, you know, as a bound book, right? So the places where we look as scholars and sort of associate with the knowledge of the period, you know, what the shared knowledge of the period, seems to me much less likely a place to look than the theater, which is a place where you can go and have a sense of sort of a shared experience and shared knowledge, even with varying levels of literacy in the audience. Yeah. You know, and so what if these plays are conveying something about whiteness as interpretive authority, and Blackness not as one ethnic group, but just as that group of people who can't read, right? And you, as a non-literate white person, can still have that experience of going, I know Othello's wife didn't cheat on him. How is he this dumb? I can't even read, and I know that, right? You know, so that the play implicitly summons this sort of audience of white experts, and that's why perhaps it has something to tell us historical that isn't just reflecting the expert knowledge of the period of you know, aspiring scientists and other men of letters, because it's purposely a spectacle that doesn't require print literacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it a play which assumes, I'm trying to think through the implications of what you're saying, which is fascinating. Is it a play that assumes an all-white audience? Is it a play that's open to racial diversity in the audience, do you think? And
I don't think so. I mean, in its original iteration, I mean, of course, like I said, you know, things can happen that Shakespeare did not foresee. You know, I would only say that Othello with Paul Robeson or James Earl Jones or Lawrence Fishburne as Othello is a different play. And I'm perfectly fine with that, right? But we have to understand that that's not what was being seen in 1604 at Whitehall. You know, that's not, and for centuries after, you know, that is not at all. And that when, I should even go before Paul Robeson, you know, when Ira Aldridge takes over the role, they're purposely trying, by putting their bodies in this previously all-white performance space, they're purposely challenging the institution of slavery or the institution of Jim Crow and apartheid.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's a hijacking, and good on them, you know. but to sort of, since they took all the risk, I don't know why Shakespeare gets all the credit, right?
Right.
Yep, exactly. Of saying like, well, by people doing that and lending their humanity and perspective and talents to these roles, or to the role of Othello, that they are creating more depth in the play than what is actually written in the play when it comes to Othello's characterization, because he isn't viewed as a person. He mostly is like someone for people to be like bouncing their ideas off of. He is a narrative plot device rather than his own person. And so like, thank you, Miles Grier, for talking about these things. I think that's where we're going to have to stop for today, but I do want to finish this next week as we continue reading. Just so that we can get to the reading itself. So, in the very first scene, we have Iago and Roderigo enter. We already have a footnote for Iago's name before he says anything. And I'm still reading out of this version. Oh, I should put on my gloves. I forgot to get my fancier version. Excuse me. I'm still reading out of this one because as I was looking through my fancier one, I realized that this has a lot more footnotes, and I would like to still provide more of that context for things that I think the other one doesn't. It's much prettier, but it also does not have as much background that I think is helpful in understanding the play. Did you have any enjoyment over any Latin courses you had during grad school? I haven't gone to grad school. I think I would. I haven't ruled that out. I've been pretty disillusioned in many ways of like going to get higher education, of like what's like the cost benefit, you know. but it doesn't mean, like, I've always liked school, so I don't know what that says about me. But, like, I think I always viewed it as, like, oh, this is a place to learn and, like, expand our minds. It's not always, you know? But also, like, I do enjoy, like, hearing from people where, like, their lives are dedicated towards, like, a particular subject. I never took any Latin, actually. I took some French. I took some Spanish in, like, junior high and high school. And my French is bad. My Spanish is worse. I'm trying to get better at my Spanish. But I also was studying Danish for a little bit because I'm Danish as well. And I was like, oh, I want to be able to speak Danish. Like, I still have family in Denmark, and I, like, had people to speak to as well, or that I could, like my grandma. But also, like, that didn't count towards my major. And so I was like, oh, I guess I should take French instead. And for the English major, it was very recommended or emphasized to take French, because French and German, as these are the primary languages that helped form the English language. So I chose French instead because it was a little bit easier for me, having some experience with Spanish, so Latin-based languages. But yeah, I think the most, like, Latin itself that I was exposed to was, like, in choirs that I was in. We were singing, like, Gregorian chant stuff. So that's about the extent for me. Have you taken... Wait, you have. I think you have taken some Latin classes, right? At least, am I remembering right? Okay. Lots of Roman and Greek words in choir. Yeah, those could show up as well. Self-taught. Okay. Then I'm just confusing that because I'm like, you do, like, say some Latin things occasionally. Good for you. What languages did you study? I mean, French, obviously, and English, I'm sure. Okay. So this footnote, before we even begin the reading, starts with Iago's name. Iago's name may be related to Santiago Matamoros, St. James, the Moor Slayer, the patron saint of Spain. So just having that foreshadowing. We will see that Iago is given much more humanity, or, like, acting like a person, more than Othello does. Most recent Latin word I said was aletheia. Do I know what this means? That doesn't look familiar to me. Greek for opining or truth, as Heidegger would say, nuance. Oh, that's cool. Aletheia. Am I saying that right? Interesting. Aletheia. That's probably what it is. Interesting. Very cool. I love that. Okay. We're starting with Rodrigo. Now I'm trying to think of, like, what his voice should be. Have you ever heard Greek? I've heard a little bit of Greek spoken, not a ton though. I'm not super familiar with, like recognizing it when I hear it, though. Modern Greek, yeah, of like not recognizing it as much. I feel like I can recognize it more when it's written. Do you know much Greek? It's spicy. No, you're good. I mean, it's all language. We're talking about language. Okay. What should Rodrigo's voice be? Tush, never tell me. I take it much unkindly. Meaning annoyance, disbelief. Like, when you say never tell me, like, oh, don't tell me that. That thou, Iago, who hast had my purse, as if the strings were thine, should know of this? S'blood, but you'll not hear me. By Christ's blood, meaning s'blood. Like Christ blood, s'blood. If ever I did dream of such a matter, abhor me. Thou toldest... I'm having them be like this same voice. I need to differentiate these two. Thou toldest me thou didst hold him in thy hate. Despise me, if I do not. 3 great ones of the city, in personal suit to make me his lieutenant, off-capped to him, and by the faith of man, I know my price. I am worth no worse a place. Took off-capped, meaning took off their caps. So Iago is mad that he didn't get the lieutenant position. I have a friend and acquaintances who are Greek, reacquainted with their heritage. Oh, interesting. I know, there certainly is not as much of a, like, Greek diaspora in Utah, where I'm located, but yeah, it is so rich in history. There's some really great food. I would be interested in learning Greek. I wish I could just, like, download every language to my head to know. But that goes against, like, what it means to even, like, provide the humanity behind language, too. That's cool that they've gotten reacquainted with their heritage. Currently in the process of that as well, myself. But he, as loving his own pride and purposes, evades them with a bombast circumstance, horribly stuffed with epithets of war, military jargon. Non-suits my mediators. Denies my mediators, for certes, meaning certainly, says he, I have already chose my officer. And what was he? Forsooth, a great arithmetician. One Michael Cassio, a Florentine. With an inflated circumlocution, bombast, cotton padding and clothes, a metaphor picked up by stuffed, line 14, and possibly suit and non-suits, so a play on words with what Shakespeare is saying. Here, by arithmetician, implying that Cassio's knowledge of war is purely theoretical. When Michael Cassio, a Florentine, a fellow almost damned of fair wife. Cassio, this is a footnote, has not yet met Bianca and is unmarried, although in Shakespeare's source he is. Perhaps Shakespeare's error, a reference to Cassio as a ladies' man, or an oblique, debatable anticipation of the main plot. So, like, this can happen as well, where, like, often Shakespeare can be given too much credit for, like, having these very intricate plots. A lot of the time, the plots are not that nuanced. It's, like, what he does with language that is much more impressive. A lot of the plots for these things he lifts from other stories or legends and just, like, re-synthesizes it. But there can be a lot of plot holes in Shakespeare's plays, like, especially in Hamlet. That, meaning who, never set a squadron in the field, nor the division of a battle knows, meaning ordering a battalion, more than a spinster, unless the bookish theoric, meaning a spinster, a housewife, unless the bookish learning. So he's mad that he's like, Cassio is not practiced in warfare and he was promoted to lieutenant. Wherein the togaed consuls can propose as masterly as he. Footnote. In which the toga-wearing senators can debate. Mere prattle without practice is all his soldiership, but he, sir, had the election, and I, of whose eyes had seen the proof, at Rhodes, at Cyprus, and on other grounds, christened and heathen, must be belayed and calmed, without belayed meaning without wind, and calmed, be calmed. So christened meaning like Christian and heathen, of like all the places that they're fighting, whether it's like a place where Christianity already exists or they're imposing Christianity, and heathen meaning everyone else. So that goes to show what they think of people who are non-Christian. By debtor and creditor, this countercaster, he in good time, indeed. He in good time must his lieutenant be. So, countercaster, he's using pejorative terms for an accountant. Perhaps too much credit given as how the generations seek to view the narrative with an integrative interpretation keeps its colors vibrant. Yeah, exactly. I think that's very well said. Of often because Shakespeare is studied so much, it just is like provided all of these layers that often people like over the years bring so much like history and thought and talent to interpretations that it like builds something that sometimes even exists like outside of the text itself. And I, God bless the mark, his morship's ensign, meaning like a flag bearer. An ensign, Iago, is something like a standard bearer in third in command. He clearly ranks below Lieutenant Cassio, the second in command. This reference to his morship is also the first indication about whom Iago had been complaining. So again, his name is not said. It's only talking about him in racialized terms in a demeaning manner. Roderigo, by heaven, I rather would have been his hangman. Iago, why, there's no remedy. 'Tis the curse of service. Preferment goes by letter and affection. Promotion comes through connections and favoritism. And not by old gradation, transitional seniority, where each second stood heir to the first. Now, sir, be judge yourself, whether I in any just term am affined, am bound in any just way, to love the Moor. A Moor was a Muslim of the mixed Berber and Arab people inhabiting northwest Africa. This term, like the comparison of Othello to a Barbary horse, again, comparing someone who is dark-skinned, particularly someone who is black, as animalistic, is extremely racist. An Arab line, 113, formerly led to the denial of Othello's blackness, but the passages describing Othello's appearance, thick lips, black rams, sooty bosom, black Othello, I am black, black as mine own face, yeah, like, hello, seemed to have greater weight. Moor often meant sub-Saharan African in the Renaissance. Yeah, he's constantly talked about in racialized terms, as we have already seen. I would not follow him then. Iago. So Roderigo is just like, oh, I believe you. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right to be mad about what's going on. Oh, sir, I content you. I follow him to serve my turn upon him. We cannot all be masters, nor all masters cannot truly be followed. You shall mark many a duteous and knee-crooking knave, that doting on his obsequious bondage, wears out his time much like his master's ass, for naught but provender, animal feed, and when he's old, cashiered, meaning fired. Whip me, meaning the hell with. Such honest knaves. Others there are who trimmed in forms, or outwardly decorated. Some of these, okay, maybe I won't read all of the little notes, because I feel like trimmed, that kind of implies it's decoration. who trimmed in forms and visages of duty, keep yet their hearts attending on themselves, and throwing but shows of service on their lords, do well thrive by 'em, and when they have lined their coats, do themselves homage. These fellows have some soul. As such a one do I profess myself. For, sir, it is as sure as you are Roderigo. Were I the Moor, I would not be Iago. So he's, like, finding comfort in not being racialized. Even though he is, because he is racializing other people, which makes him racialized. In following him, I follow but myself. Heaven is my judge, not I for love and duty. I am not driven by... Oh, that's implied. But seeming so for my peculiar end. For when my outward action doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart, in compliment extern, 'tis not long after, but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve. So this is a Shakespearean phrase, wearing your heart on your sleeve, meaning like having your intentions or true emotions be shown outwardly. For daws to pick at, crow like birds. I am not what I am. Okay, I thought we had a footnote, but we don't. What a full fortune does the thick lips owe? Ew. So again, just extremely racist language. Own. If he can carry it thus. Call up her father, rouse him, make after him, poison his delight, proclaim him in the streets, incense her kinsmen, and, though he in a fertile climate dwell, plague him with flies. Though that his joy be joy, yet throw such chances of vexation on it, as it may lose some colour. Here is her father's house. I'll call aloud. Do, with like timorous accent, frightening tone, and dire yell as when, by night and negligence, the fire is spied in populous cities. Roderigo, calling. What ho, Brabantio! Signor Brabantio, ho! And many people say Brabantio, but I feel like there would be Italians that would be mad at that. I don't know. Iago calling. Awake! What ho, Brabantio! Thieves! 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 Look to your house, your daughter, and your bags. Thieves! Thieves! Enter Brabantio in his nightgown at a window above. Brabantio. What is the reason of this terrible summons? What is the matter there? Roderigo. Signor, is all your family within? Are all your doors locked? Why, wherefore you ask this? Swoons, sir, meaning Christ's wounds. Swoons. Sir, you're robbed. For shame, put on your gown. Your heart is burst. You have lost half your soul. Even now, very now, an old black ram is tupping your white ewe, copulating with. So just being extremely racist once again and saying like, oh, he's stolen your daughter. Arise, arise! Awake the snorting citizens with the bell. That means snoring. Or else the devil will make a grandsire of you. Arise, I say. What? Have you lost your wits? Most reverend signor, do you know my voice? Not I. What are you? Roderigo. My name is Roderigo. The worse are welcome. I have charged thee not to haunt about my doors. In honest plainness thou hast heard me say, my daughter is not for thee, and now in madness. So we also hear that, like, Roderigo, he was pursuing Desdemona at one point, so he is being manipulated by Iago to actually be engaged in discrediting Iago because he was jealous. Being full of supper and distempering draughts, upon malicious bravery dost thou come, to start my quiet, meaning to upset my quiet. Sir, sir, sir! That was Roderigo. But thou must needs be sure, make spirits in my place have in their power to make this bitter to thee. Patience, good sir. What tellest thou me of robbing? This is Venice. My house is not a grange, meaning a country house. That's also being prejudiced against people in rural areas. Most brave Brabantio, in simple and pure soul I come to thee. Swoon, sir, you are one of those that will not serve God if the devil bid you, because we come to do you service and think we are ruffians. You'll have your daughter covered with a Barbary horse. See, that was that reference. Horse from northwest coastal Africa, an Arab suggesting barbarism. Yeah, racism. You'll have your nephews, meaning grandsons, neigh to you. Ew. You'll have your coursers for cousins and jennets for Germans. Coursers, strong horses, cousins, kinsmen, jennets, small Spanish horses, Germans, close relatives. That was a quick summary of all those terms, according to the footnote. Brabantio. Thou art a villain. Yeah. You are a senator. This thou shalt answer. I know thee, Roderigo. Sir, I will answer anything, but I beseech you, if it be your pleasure and most wise consent. Oh, it's just giving a footnote about the quarto. There are all these different types of editions that Shakespeare wrote that many scholars are like, this is more reliable of a version than others. So the nerdy academic footnote. As partly I find it is that your fair daughter at this odd even, late, around midnight, and dull watch of the night, transported with no worse nor better guard, but with a knave of common hire, a gondolier, to be to the gross clasps of a lascivious Moor. If this be known to you, and your allowance, we then have done you bold and saucy wrongs. But if I know not this, my manners tell me we have your wrong rebuke. Do not believe that from the sense of all civility, I thus would play and trifle with your reverence. Your daughter, if you have not given her leave, I say again, hath made a gross revolt, tying her duty, beauty, wit, and fortunes in an extravagant and wheeling stranger. So, they're all questioning Desdemona's choice and her mental faculties and saying, this is a bad reflection on you. A wheeling stranger. This is also seemingly racist with talking about Roma people. Of here and everywhere, straight satisfy yourself. If she be in her chamber or your house, let loose on me the justice of the state for thus deluding you. Brabantio, calling. Strike on the tinder, ho! Meaning, give me a light. Give me a taper, candle. Call up my people. This accident is not unlike my dream. Belief of it oppresses me already. Light, I say, light. Exit. Iago. Farewell, for I must leave you. It seems not meet nor wholesome to my place to be producted, as if I stay, I shall. Producted, meaning presented as a witness in a trial. Against the Moor, for I do know the state. However, this may gall him with some check, meaning he's trying to get away so that he's not caught in, fomenting all of this discord against Othello. However, this may gall him with some check, cannot with safety cast him, dismiss him, for he's embarked, committed, with such loud reason to the Cyprus wars, which even now stands in act, that for their souls another of his fathom, caliber, they have none, to lead their business in which regard, though I do hate him as I do hell pains, yet for necessity or of present life, I must show out a flag in sign of love, which is indeed but sign, that you shall surely find him, lead to the Sagittary, the raised search, awakened searchers, and I will be within, and there will I be with him, so farewell. Okay, so the Sagittary. Footnote, perhaps indicating an inn named for the astrological sign Sagittarius, where Othello and Desdemona are staying. It may also suggest Othello himself, since Sagittarius is depicted as a centaur, a mythological being, part man, part horse, and Iago has already likened Othello to a Barbary horse. Yeah, just incredible amounts of racism. Enter below, Brabantio in his nightgown, and servants with torches. It is too true and evil. Gone she is, and what's to come of my despised time? is naught but bitterness. Now, Roderigo, where didst thou see her? O unhappy girl! With the Moor, say'st thou? Who would be a father? How didst thou know 'twas she? Oh, she deceives me past thought. What said she to you? To servants, get more tabors, raise all my kindred. Exit one or more. To Roderigo, are they married, think you? Truly, I think they are. O heaven, how got she out? O treason of the blood! Fathers, from hence trust not your daughters' minds. By what you see them act, is not their charms, meaning magic, by which the property, attribute of youth and maidenhood, maidhood, be abused? Have you not read, Roderigo, of some such thing? So again, this is more of like, if we're taking a feminist reading to this, her actually, Desdemona, having more autonomy over her life, choosing who she wants to marry, not listening to the patriarchal forces around her, literally the patriarch of her family, her father, also to the people around him who are saying that like she should or shouldn't marry someone, that there can be a reading of interpreting Desdemona dying as her paying a price for actually accessing her autonomy. Did you read Plato's Republic? I did at one point. I need to read that again. Maybe we should read that on the stream. Did you read that at all? Have you not read, Roderigo, of some such thing? Yes, sir, I have indeed. Call up my brother. Oh, would you had had her. So this is the intention, that he was saying to Roderigo, I wish you would have had her instead, even though he said that he didn't want her to be with Roderigo. That's like his fault. Some way, some another. He's directing the servants, telling them to go one way or another. To Roderigo. Do you know where we may apprehend her and the Moor? I think I can discover him, if you please, to get good guard and go along with me. Brabantio. Pray you, lead on. At every house I'll call. I may command at most, meaning demand help. Get weapons, ho! And raise some special officers of night. On, good Roderigo, I will deserve your pains, meaning he'll reward his pains. Okay. That is the end of scene 1. End scene. Okay, so for the next scene, we'll still, in preparation, watch or finish that video that we started on with Miles Grier, that professor who was doing a really great job of talking about the problematic nature of Othello and how people often bring more meaning to it, especially when there are people of color, but particularly Black actors cast as Othello. So it will be extremely helpful to have this in mind as we keep going throughout the play and reading it. The first chapter from my copy. I'm drawing some themes from there onto here. Ooh, I love that. Abnegation of duty. Yeah, of like there is this punishment of not, whether that is by like the forces, like man-made forces or like godlike forces. Intellectually awkward on Othello's part. Interesting. I love that. Yeah, what are some other themes that you're picking up? If you're interested in sharing. Okay, before we close off the stream today, I did want to show this Act 1, Scene 1. It is 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes, pretty quick. It'll go by quickly. But we are seeing Inigo, who is played by a Black man, and that this can often be a way to for people to say there's a reclaiming happening, but it doesn't diminish the fact that Othello is still spoken about in a very racist manner. So, like, still holding all of these things at once. Bianca's role in the womanhood. Egalitarian purview. Stark contrast from Othello's lover. Oh, yes, true. Yeah, Bianca is much more, like, girls supporting girls. Women supporting women, I should say. Yeah, and also it can be viewed that, like, Emilia, that her support of Emilia, the wife of Iago, her support of Desdemona ends up being her demise as well. That, like, feminism is punished, having any sort of acceptance of other races is punished. So it can be interpreted in a very bleak way, which, you know, that's what the text says. So
now, sir, be judge yourself whether I, in any just term, am a fine to love this more.
I would not follow him then.
Oh, sir, content you. I follow him to serve my turn upon him. We cannot all be masters, nor all masters cannot be truly followed. For, sir, it is as sure as you are Rodrigo, were I this more.
putrid manure of tragedy. Yeah,
Following
exactly.
him, I follow but myself.
Yeah, thank you,
Heaven
Shakespeare.
is my judge, not I.
Just
for
create
love
some
nor duty,
interesting
but seeming so for my
instances to be
peculiar ends.
analyzing.
For when my outward action doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart in complement extern, 'tis not long after, but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve for doors to peck at. I am not what I am.
Oh, what a full fortune does the thick lips owe, if it can carry it thus.
That's an interesting interpretation there, where he's saying this very racist thing of saying thick lips. Hi, Tiny. And he is, like, not appreciating that, punishing him for that. Yep, you deserve that.
Call up her father. Rouse him. Make after him. Proclaim him in the
Terms of
streets.
acting, could one allocate
his
the
delight.
bag?
Incense her
Masking.
kinsman, and though he in a fertile climate dwell, plague him with flies. Though that his joy be joy, yet throw such chances of vexation on as may lose some color.
But here is her father's house. I'll call aloud.
Do.
No, it is interesting. I agree.
What ho, Brabantio! Signor Brabantio, ho!
Awake! What ho, Brabantio! Thieves! 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 Look to your house, your daughter, and your bags! Thieves!
Yeah, he's like, stop. He's like, act in the way that I'm wanting you to. How one plays their choice of masks and how relieving it can still induce its visceral claim. Ooh, that's a really cool way of putting that. Hence why I love theatrical plays. Yeah, and I mean, like, Shakespeare really lends itself to that, of, like, what people are presenting to the world versus how there is this, like, internal monologue, and that you can actually get that with plays where you have soliloquies of people actually speaking their inner thoughts to the audience, but that the rest of the characters don't know. That, like, that's different than film. I mean, unless you are watching like a Shakespeare film, that is. Haven't seen many. You haven't seen many plays? You should. I'm sure you would love to see more. I mean, I always love seeing plays as well. I remember seeing, I had the chance and privilege of being able to see As You Like It at the Globe Theater, and it is one of the queerest plays of Shakespeare, where you have people cross-dressing all over the place, and where you have a woman dressing up as a man and then pretending to be a woman. So it's like gender fuckery happening just on so many different levels. I know, can you hear Juniper? My partner is cooking as well, and so like she's our little alarm. But there was this reinterpretation. It was just like so inclusive and breaking down of gender, where at the end conclusion essentially was like gender doesn't matter, where like in the normal Shakespeare play, or like if you're doing it as written, everyone goes back to their normal, whatever that means, gender of like what is assigned to them, who they're expected to be, and then they get married. And in this particular interpretation, they don't go back to these other versions, because their truer selves are revealed through the cross-dressing that they originally were doing to be like, oh, this is a role. Then they realize like, oh, this is actually more who I am. That was like one of the most like enlightening spiritual experiences I think I've ever had. It was very exciting. So at the end there was and there were drag kings, drag queens, they thems, the they bees were being represented. There was like some pop music that they would like break out into song occasionally. It was so delightful, and just goes to show how like what you were saying before, like how we were talking about or how Miles Grier was talking about how often like these reinterpretations can provide much more weight and much more meaning to the text than the text ever did. The text can lend itself to that, but like that's what we should be doing. Like, why should we be limiting our imaginations for like what the possibilities are for these types of reinterpretations, or even writing new things so that they can embody all of this as well. Yeah, it was very cool. There was like interpretive voguing at the end. Like someone was like doing voguing, like one of the main characters, they were doing stuff and then they were doing it very slowly. So it was like interpretive dance, but like it was so beautiful. I cried multiple times. It was a very cool experience. So just goes to show that like we should not be putting all of our hopes and dreams on Shakespeare necessarily. I am a Shakespeare nerd. I love reading it, but also that like it is our own interpretation, that like when we are taking a decolonizing lens that is breaking down all of these oppressive structures, that it means there is so much more meaning we can be pulling from any sort of art, and that it lends itself to a more human experience and seeing each other as more human. So that's what I love about art, and why I think it's necessary to be engaging with these levels of deconstructing oppressive systems. So, okay, that's going to be it for me today, but I will be back on Monday, and yeah, I will briefly go over headlines. I think I will also try to put in like good current events that are happening, because as I've been doing this over the streams where I want to talk about what's happening in current events, but it can just be so bleak, and that's because that's what's happening. But I also want to be like, okay, there are things that people are doing that are exciting and that we should be finding revolutionary optimism in. One of my fave quotes has to be, both genders are aiming to step into androgyny, or something like that. Genders as in energies. I love that. Okay. Yes. It's all a construct that was made up and imposed to justify these power imbalances and dehumanizing people. Incredible. Well, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the conversation and engagement. And I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.